Rest assured, Carol, we will figure out what makes you different.
Figure it out, why?
So we can fix it. So you can join us.
Today, we're diving deep into the latest creation from the man who needs no introduction, and that is Vince Gilligan. This 4-time Emmy-winning producer and the mastermind behind one of my all-time favorite shows in Breaking Bad, and one of, if not the greatest prequel series in Better Call Saul, is taking us back to his roots. 30 years after getting his start in television on The X-Files, Gilligan is now the showrunner and creator of the new Apple TV Plus sci-fi drama by the name of Pluribus. Now, for those of you who are like me and who have been eagerly awaiting this show since it was announced back in 2022, you at least know the basic idea of the show, despite the marketing being very extremely vague. But for anyone out there learning about Pluribus for the first time, here's a quick crash course. Pluribus is set in Albuquerque because of course it is. It's the same iconic location of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, but it has nothing to do with those shows. The show follows Carol, a New Mexico book writer who is seamlessly the only person unaffected by a mysterious global virus. And here's the kicker. The virus creates this psychological effect of making everyone happy.
I just want you to be happy.
Now, immediately the title itself gives us a sense of what we're about to experience. E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many, one. It's also the motto of the United States, referring to the union formed by separate states, often seen on US currency. But notice how Gilligan spells it. That subtle change replacing the I with the number 1 is critical, as it hints towards one, a hive mind presented towards the end of this episode. The title also hints at a world where being unique, being an individual, might get eaten up by this contagious happiness. It's about a collective state, but a fundamental shift in the reality that only the most miserable person can fix. And here's the classic Vince Gilligan irony. The biggest threat isn't sadness or despair, but a universal good vibe we know as happiness. Gilligan is probably gonna make us question if being truly happy means losing yourself, or if true happiness is even possible when someone's forced into it. It's control, identity, and the dark side of seamlessly positive force, all classic Gilligan themes. Alright, now that we got the context out of the way, it's time to break down and discuss this first episode. And yes, spoilers ahead, if you all haven't watched it yet, you all have been warned. We open with a countdown, 439 days, 19 hours, 56 minutes, and 2 seconds. As a speeding truck arrives near a station collecting data from satellites. A man hops out of his truck and immediately calls BS on some readings that are apparently freaking wide and periodic. These signals they're analyzing are coming from 600 light years away and could be extraterrestrial. This rare out-of-space signals creates a buzz amongst other astronomers. They share what they believe it could be, as one of them discovers it could form a Morse code split 4 ways into frequencies. A detail we learn more about later. Now, the two men we initially met talk about who or what could have sent this very complex message, but the one guy who found it believes he knows exactly what it might be. Fast forward to another countdown, 71 days, 13 hours, 20 minutes, and 59 seconds, which is a little over a year since the message was originally received. We see a team of researchers and scientists all wearing different colored scrubs to represent their individual expertise. As we'll later discover, they're all working on creating an RNA, sampling and testing on rats, attempting to replicate the message. Now, for any scientific researchers out there watching this breakdown or watching this episode, let's take a look at this board in this scene. There's information about plagues and various combinations of viruses that affect most humans at a young age, for example, HHV6. Now, for those out there that are much smarter than me, does any of this make sense story-wise? Now, we'll later learn in this episode that these scientists and doctors are indeed recreating the signal into what becomes the happiness virus, but let me know in the comments if there's anything that I should be taking away from this board that might be important for the rest of the story that I might have missed. Now we cut to a book reading at a Barnes & Noble. Here we meet our hero of the story, Carol, wearing a green sweater. I want you all to pay attention to the frequency of the use of particular colors in this episode. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Carol's a historical romance book writer promoting the 4th book of her series, The Blood Song of Wakaro.
Waikaro, please, the twins of Waikaro.
We see that Carol has a very loyal fan base who love her and love her books even more. But it's here that we can see during her book signing and throughout these interactions with her fans, you can see the mask Carol has on. It's one of pretending to be happy and proud of her work, and it is slowly wearing thin. Now later in the car with her manager, who we soon discover is her wife by the name of Helen, it's here we see Carol's true feelings on her work.
That was quite a send-off. I'm sorry, should I know who you are?
Depends. You a big fan of mindless crap?
To me, this is a great example of how this show will hopefully explore the idea behind pretending to be happy. We see Carol creates these books that aren't creatively fulfilling for her, but they make other people happy. It's like others are controlling her happiness, which in my mind is a direct parallel to what we see with the happiness virus later on. But it's also important to note, through the BS of these books, Helen is Carol's support system, the one thing that truly keeps her happy, and the contrast is key. Cut to 29 days, 23 hours, 49 minutes and 56 seconds, a little over a month since we last saw the researchers in their labs. As we're now inside the United States Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases. Now inside we meet two doctors who have been toiling for 8 months on a project that for them has been a major disappointment. Now their goal was to create a sequence that encodes a lysogenic virus. And their test subjects happens to be rats, which shares a surprisingly 92% DNA to us humans, which by the way, may be key to what happens to them shortly. As the doctors prepare to gas what they believe are expendable rats, I couldn't help but to make this parallel. Here are these doctors in a position of undeniable power control, ending lives that have served their purpose. Their helplessness mirrors the very fate awaiting the majority of mankind, who will soon have no control over the virus that takes a hold of them. Now, Dr. Jan notices that one of the rats appears unexpectedly dead. Now, as she's showing curiosity or even empathy, we see the doctor removes her gloves to check on the rat's heartbeat. Now, just as she might be thinking it's faking, the rat bites her, breaking the skin as it scurries off. This appearing dead or actually dying symptom, remember it because we'll see it again in others who are affected later. Jan moves to disinfect her wound, but immediately she's stopped because she has this violent seizure. Dr. D, horrified, shoves her into the safety shower. As the water comes down on her, Jan slowly stops shaking, appearing to return to normal. But then we see it, a slow, unsettling smile spreads across her face. Cut to security guard Mel, who earlier thoughtfully brought donuts for the entire staff. Now we watch as Dr. Jan approaches him, and in a moment that's both intimate and terrifying, she kisses him. This is our first clear indication of how the virus spreads, rapidly and effectively through saliva, particularly via kissing. We then see Dr. D mirroring Jan, planting a smile on his face and affecting the cleaning man with a kiss. This whole setup immediately reminded me of the horror film Smile. We watch as the now infected staff, all smiling, collect samples from their mouths, preparing petri dishes, leaving little small drawn smiles inside of them. And in a final act of mass contamination, we see Dr. Jan licking the very donuts Mel brought for everyone, as the stage for a global pandemic of insidious joy is now set. We cut to day 0, hour 3, minute 6, 34 seconds in to another month later since the virus has officially been activated and spread. We're now back with Carol, who's returned home from another book tour, and she's at her local airport as she has her wife make sure to switch out her books from the bottom shelf to the top row at the airport bookstore. Now, as they're leaving the airport and they're now in the garage, we see that Helen refuses to let Carol drive after having a couple drinks. Seeing the breathalyzer in the car suggests a history with alcohol and perhaps even recovery from Carol. Now, something I wanted to point out is Helen also picked up some gum from the store. Could this be another vector for the virus, perhaps through contaminated products? Or maybe it got in the water source at some point, or it's being spread through the same way it was found via sound waves. Now at a bar, celebrating their best book tour ever, we see more of Carol's resentment towards her books and calling her fans a bunch of dummies.
Oh, how I hate all those paying customers showering me with love and respect. And why do I have to make so much money? Wah!
Now I would be remiss not to bring this up again, but I wanted to mention the importance of the different colors heavily used in this episode. From seeing colors like yellow, which was key in the promotion of the show, symbolizing happiness. We see a ton of greens, we see pinks, but it's the color purple that takes center stage in this episode and it's mentioned repeatedly. Whether we saw the doctors wearing purple in their labs, we saw Carol's book signing and her pen was purple, even the sand in her books is purple. Now, if you all are familiar with the color theory, the color purple can mean things like royalty, mystery, transformation, wisdom, or even mourning. There has to be a reason for these colors used, especially the color purple. Again, considering this show's deep themes and tackling the human emotions, this choice doesn't seem like an accident. To me, it hints at things like profound changes, hidden knowledge, and a power dynamic that's both alluring and dangerous. Now, back to the conversation about Carol's unhappiness with her books, we see Helen suggest that she put out a more serious book that she's been working on for the last 5 years called Bitter Chrysalis. An interesting title for a book. Chrysalis meaning visible outer transformations and private inner ones, sometimes associated with butterflies. I'm going to go on a limb here and predict at some point we'll see Carol ultimately finish that book. Once she's transformed to something new, either by this season or by next season, especially after what Helen says about its potential impact it can have on others. Now, Helen brings up James Joyce Finnegan's Wake, a notoriously difficult book known for its stream of consciousness style and words from over 60 different languages. Now, its title comes from an Irish ballad about a man who raises from the dead. Now, Helen admits that she never finished reading this because it made her feel miserable, but she also puts an emphasis on her belief that it could just simply be that it made at least one person happy, and that's worth it alone. Again, I think this conversation will end up being fundamental to Carol's journey this season, linking the concept of raising from the dead to not only finding a cure for humanity, but also finding her own happiness and balance. Now again, it is clear that Helen is Carol's guide into happiness and keeps her going, but unfortunately, that's about to change. Now, just before they step outside for a smoke, which by the way is odd considering that Helen says that Carol has never smoked before, we see a TV in the bar broadcasting breaking news. As it highlights, a airbase is on lockdown. Now outside, we watch as Carol is continuously mocking her fans again as she looks up to the sky. She notices that there are planes flying in a strange parallel arrangement. Now, as Helen encourages Carol to answer some fan questions, we see the tone shifts dramatically. This is where the show descends into a more chilling, apocalyptic, Walking Dead meets The Last of Us scenario, but not nearly as bloody or gory or as violent as those outbreaks. Now, out of nowhere, we see a man crashes his truck. Carol rushes to help, but then we see Helen collapses, experiencing the exact same seizure we saw with the doctors back at the research facility. Carol runs back into the bar for help, only to find everyone inside exhibiting the same terrifying symptoms. She calls 911, but she has no answer. Now, my question is, how did all these people get infected? Did all these people get infected via drinks or by something else? The reason I say that is because their symptoms seem to have taken longer than what we saw when it was transferred via a kiss. Carol, quick thinking and desperate, pushes over the seizing man in his truck, and she puts Helen in the back since she can't use her own car because of the breathalyzer, and we watch as she takes off. The road ahead is pure pandemonium. Flip police cars, widespread destruction, the apocalypse has arrived. Now at a hospital, Carol finds the same scene, everyone inside is infected. Now back outside, Carol finds Helen, briefly comes to, and we see these red markings around her eyes and her nose. As Helen manages to briefly smile, and then, unlike the others, she dies. Now as Carol cries, the infected inside the hospital began to rise, wandering off like zombies. Carol grabs one of them and they all turn around with their smiles on their face. Now the man she grabs kisses her, but Carol remains unaffected. They try to take Helen from the back of the truck, but Carol stops them. The infected all stare at her, speaking in a collective hive mind voice as they tell her,
"What the hell is wrong with you people?"
We just want to help, Carol.
Now this is important. As Carol's driving in the streets, we see some of what seems to be some unaffected people. These individuals, clearly in control of their bodies and minds, are trying to help an injured person, and they drive away from the infected swarms. We even see the guy who helped them basically blends right back into the crowd. Where exactly were they going? Because to me, they clearly again were unaffected and they clearly have control over their mind and body. I wonder if they are a part of the 12 that we later hear about and they got away, and we'll see this scene from their perspective at some point this season. Now, there's a couple of people we see who, again, I'm assuming is unaffected as they try to put out a fire on a bus, but they ultimately get surrounded and outnumbered by the people who have the virus and maybe return later as we see Carol driving off. Now back home, trying to collect herself after her loss of Helen, we see Carol struggles to get inside her place until her next door neighbor's kids, who are also infected at this point, try to help Carol by reminding her where the spare key is she placed years back can be found. Now, how on earth did they know that detail? This makes me question the nature of the virus, or the psychic glue as what it's called later in this episode. Does the host retain its memories? Did one of these kids, now a part of the collective hive mind, remember seeing Helen or Carol place this key there years ago? Now we watch in a very creepy manner. We see the kids tell Carol that they only want to help, as we see the rest of her surrounding neighbors offer their condolences. Now soon after, the neighbors drive away and a truck arrives to collect someone who, like Helen, didn't take to the virus. Now, what's this all about? What are they doing with these bodies? Are they being examined? What are the statistics? How many became infected versus how many simply died? But the burning question, the one echoing in Carol's own mind and ours, is why didn't people like her get affected? Now, desperate for answers, we see Carol flips through the channels until she finds a man at a podium at the White House. As a message flashes on the screen, call the number when ready. Now, with a couple of stiff drinks for courage, we watch Carol dials the number.
Hi, Carol. Thank you for calling. This must be so bewildering for you, so terrible. All the death and destruction you witnessed tonight, especially Helen's passing. Please know, none of that was intentional. You have our deepest condolences. And to say it again, you are in no danger. You are perfectly safe.
Okay.
Now, Carol clearly gathering her feelings and thoughts, but she finally comes up with the most important question, and that is, what the hell is happening?
It's an alien invasion, right? I mean, obviously, it's an alien invasion.
No, it is not.
What the f*** it isn't? You know my name. You know Helen's name. You are talking to me from my TV.
By the way, the performance this whole time by Rhea Seehorn and basically following her the last 20 minutes of this episode has been nothing short of incredible. The man's explanation is a masterclass in sci-fi horror. We find out that they're not mind readers, they're not aliens, or at least from this planet, a key phrase that immediately expands the show's universe. We find out they are in fact beneficiaries of the extraterrestrial technology, the same tech that picked up the mysterious signal at the episode's start. The signal is made up of 4 tones that are recipes from
representing guanine, uracil, adenine, and cytosine. It's a recipe, it turns out, for a nucleotide sequence, RNA. We're all one.
How does that work?
We don't know exactly, it just does.
This explanation tells me that they, or us, doesn't truly know the origins of the signal from outer space, which is very interesting. Basically a creative hive mind. As Carol finds out she's currently speaking with everyone on Earth, she learns that some very important people within the government, including the president himself, has passed away. But the good news, if you want to call it that, Carol isn't alone. There are 11 others like her across the world who didn't get affected. Now they tell Carol they just want to fix her so she can join them, yet they immediately contradict themselves by saying that her life is hers. This again is a recurring theme of the show, which seems to be control or the illusion of having control. They want her to be free, but only if that freedom leads to her joining them. We watch as Carol hangs up on the world as they call her back and try to leave her a voicemail where she hears Helen's voice one last time as they tell her they only want to make her happy. Now, let's talk about the 12 unaffected, with Carol being one of them. This immediately sends my mind to the 12 apostles, also known as the 12 disciples. Could this be more than a coincidence? Are we witnessing the birth of a new world order where these 12 individuals, as reluctant, perhaps even unwilling disciples, a new kind of collective consciousness? Now, as the episode comes to an end with day 0, hour 1, 0 minutes and 0 seconds, we're not just left with questions, we're left with seeing the world as we knew it coming to an end, and Pluribus, out of many one, has truly began. First off, again, Rhea Seehorn's performance throughout the entire episode, but in particularly the last 20 or 25 minutes or so, were just brilliant. She carried us through horror and grief and the revelations of all the things she found out, and again, it was nothing short of phenomenal. She grounded this surreal nightmare in raw human emotions, making me feel every terrifying revelation alongside her. If I already wasn't hooked by everyone involved, this premiere episode just proved to me that I wasn't wrong in having high expectations or high hopes for this show because, wow, what a way to get things started off. This wasn't just good to me, it was a masterclass in genre bending. We're talking about hard sci-fi that makes you think, but also the show has a sense of humor that threads through the tension. It then instantly pivots into a compelling mystery, and then it throws in the chilling moments of horror, and then it ratchets up the drama, and then punches you right in the gut with the surprisingly emotional moments. Now, Vince Gilligan himself has said that there were some key influences on not just this first episode, but the entire season, mentioning projects like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Star Trek, and also a Twilight Zone episode by the name of Third from the Sun. But as I was watching this, it made me think of some things that came to mind, one of them being one of my favorite shows of all time. Now, the show I'm referring to is the existential dread and the emotional weight from HBO's The Leftovers, combined with the mind-bending, high-stakes philosophical questions that came from Three Body Problem. Now, in preparation for the show, I actually went back and watched that Twilight Zone episode, The Third from the Sun, and let me tell you all, what an excellent piece of television. I can absolutely see the inspiration, not just in concept, but in the implied terror and the slow burn of its reveal. Now, for those that haven't seen this episode of Twilight Zone, which by the way, I highly recommend if you guys get a chance to check it out, I won't be spoiling anything, especially the twist that happens, but basically it's about a scientist and a pilot stealing a spacecraft to escape a planet they believe will be wiped out by atomic warfare. Now, there is a major game-changing twist revealed at the end, and it leaves you questioning everything that you previously watched in the episode. And after watching this premiere episode, I'm left wondering if in some way the twist involved in that episode of Twilight Zone is maybe gonna be implemented in this show, but in reverse. But beyond the direct inspirations, you can feel Gilligan's signature DNA woven throughout this first episode. Now, they premiered episodes 1 and 2, so I don't want to pose all my questions here because I'm sure the next episode will answer at least some of them. And at the time of this recording, I haven't seen the second episode yet, but it will be available by the time this breakdown is out. But with that said, let's talk about some of the questions that I'm left thinking about after this first episode. First thing that comes to mind, why are there 12 people that are unaffected? Is it random chance, or were they chosen perhaps as a control group, or simply because they possess a certain genetic makeup? Will we see the perspectives from the virus spreading in other locations? Will Carol eventually go looking for the other 11 people? Why do some people die when they get the virus? Is there a failure in the transfer process or a incompatibility of the certain host? Now, for those that are successfully infected, does the host original consciousness or their personhood no longer exist? Are they completely voided? Are they not longer themselves, or is it a shared consciousness? Do they retain the memories of their host? We also saw Davis on the podium drinking water, so I am to assume that they still have to take care of the host body in order to survive. Now again, a visual element of the show's focus was the importance of colors purple, green, and yellow. What's the importance of these particular colors? Does it represent the colors that make up DNA or RNA, hinting at a biological nature of the invasion? But then the biggest question is, who are they? Right now, it seems like they sent this signal, this happiness virus, for mankind to find in hopes that maybe if we're all happy, it'll end all things that are the opposite of good and being happy. Because happiness, they seem to imply, cures all things. But the philosophical question is, does it? And if it does, at what cost does happiness fix all things? Is it true free happiness or an enforced contentment? This ties so perfectly into Gilligan's exploration of the dark side of seemingly positive forces. A perfectly happy world free of conflict, but at the expense of choice, of individuality, of what it means to truly be human. So overall, I absolutely love this premiere episode. As a fan of drama and science fiction and horror, I love the tone switching because again, it did not seem jarring, it seemed seamless as the story unfolded. And the performances, absolutely stellar across the board, but honestly, I'm not surprised because Rhea Seehorn is simply phenomenal, bringing so much depth and dry wit to Carol. I'm in. I'm completely, utterly into this show, but the question is, are you? If so, join me and check out my full breakdown of episode 2 of Pluribus, now available on the channel. With that said, I think this is the perfect place to end this week's breakdown of episode 1 of season 1 of Pluribus. Now, the million-dollar question is, what did you all think about this premiere episode? Let me know your thoughts, theories, predictions. Of course, we're going to be talking about episode 2, but let me know what you all thought of this premiere episode. What were some of the deeper meanings? What were some things that you enjoyed about this episode? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. Thank you all for watching or listening to this breakdown. If you all have made it to this point of the breakdown, I want to thank you so much. Do me a favor, put in the comments right now, the special word of the week is #Raban. Now, if you enjoyed yourself and you would like for me to continue covering this show on a week-to-week basis, please let me know by hitting that like button. But also, if you're on YouTube, hit the hype button as well. I would greatly appreciate the support. Also, share this breakdown to anyone and everyone you know that might be interested in talking about this show, but also consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel for more Pluribus videos and so much more. Now, if you all are listening to this via podcast, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, I appreciate you all. Please share this podcast, leave your thoughts about the episode in the comments below, and follow the podcast for more, and leave me a review and a rating. I would appreciate it. Again, by the time you all are watching and listening to this, my breakdown of episode 2 will be available. So until next time, you all stay safe, stay awesome, try not to kiss any strangers, and I will see you all pretty soon.